Great. And now that we have some people here, I am just going to introduce myself, and then I'll introduce our guest speaker for tonight. My name is Josh. I'm Schulkind. I'm the programs manager at Mountain View Community Center, and we are doing a series called Family Life Together. This is a series to help families connect, and really more when we come back in person, but also grow in learning skills to do family life better. So I'm excited to see this start as we build family life together and kind of build our base. Would love to have you put your email in the chat so that we can add you to our database, so you can find about all the different series and activities and events as things open up more and we're able to be in person. We're going to be doing more events. We're going to actually have this live in person once we're able to do that. So going to be a lot of things to help families connect and grow. So we are continuing our series in budgeting, and last week we talked about budgeting. It's kind of our financial series, and Andy's going to introduce himself in a sec, but this week we are going over debt control. And Andy, you want to just introduce yourself and kind of take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. My name is Andy Lowe. I'm a financial advisor down in Fife. I work with Edward Jones. And I've been part of the Edgewood community for nearly 7 years and been involved in coaching, soccer and baseball. And I was on the planning commission with the city of Edgewood for a while. So, where my kids are at Mountain View, and love being a part of this community, and love being able to help, get on here and teach and, give some of my expertise to use to help you guys out. So yeah, Josh, thanks for having me back. And like you said, yeah, this is night number 2 for us. We've got 2 more. And it's fun being part of the inaugural Family Together series. So
yeah.
All right, well, we'll jump right in, I guess. Here, thank you guys for coming back. Welcome if you're the first time. If you're coming back for your second night, I appreciate it. It shows. I appreciate the support. I mean, it really means a lot. I do see we have a couple familiar names, and so before we get too far, last week in talking about debt, we asked the question, what do you think you save and what do you think you spend each month? And then we asked you to go through your budget and figure out, how close you actually got. So if you were here last week, and I think I see two of you at least, and you've gone through your budget, please let us know in the chat or email me. You'll get my contact information in a minute, but let me know how close you got. I'm really curious if that was helpful to help you get to figuring out your budget. Again, so get on the chat. Oh, we already got one. Off by about $250. That's impressive. Good work. So yeah, that means you're in touch with what you've got. I like it. All right. Well, so tonight I want to really focus on. Well, you know what? Let me back up, because one of the things too that was brought to my attention on Friday last week, the day after we did our first presentation, was that there might be some trepidation from people out there about jumping on a Zoom call about money and learning about money, whether it be budgeting or debt. And they might not want to be seen on here because they don't want other people to know that they have debt. And it seems like kind of debt's become this ugly thing that no one wants to talk about. No one wants to admit they're part of it or they use it. And so in tying the family together idea, Josh and I talked about this and the importance of discussing debt. And I know from experience, being a former business owner and just being a human being, there's times in our lives where we all have debt, and it can weigh heavily on our shoulders, and it can really affect how we interact with each other, with our spouses, with our kids, just because of that day-to-day stress. And so we really wanted to address that tonight and discuss some ways to help get out of debt. We're not going to go over all the ways because there's too many, but the tried and true methods that have worked for me, and for Josh, I think you said you even used it, but the tried and true methods to help you get out of debt. So again, if you felt embarrassed to be here, or if you were nervous about getting on here, I applaud you for taking the first steps and admitting that you need help. I mean, and sometimes that's it, just saying, hey gosh, I need some help with this. So thank you for coming. And I hope what we can teach tonight is, if you know it already, great. It'll help reinvigorate your spirit. If this is new to you, then fantastic. I'm excited for you to help get on the right path. All right, well, let me jump in. Let me share my screen again, and we will, where to go? Here we go. Okay. So we're talking about debt control strategies tonight. And again, as I work through here, if you have questions, please type them in the Q&A section or type them into the chat so that we can address them. Tonight's presentation is going to be a little bit shorter, so we'll have more time. And then there are some detailed pieces to this that if you have a question on it, there's something that's unclear, please ask and let me know so we could actually address it. So anyway, again, I am a financial advisor, so if you have any information or have any questions and need more information, please take down my information here. And again, I'll show it to you as we go through, but let me know, reach out to me if there's any questions you have. As we discussed last week, I like to begin every financial conversation with our 5-step process. This helps me figure out what your roadmap is going to look like based on where you are today, what goals you want to achieve, and how you're going to get there. Last week, we spent most of our time figuring out where you are, how do you get there, and what that full 5-step process looks like within your budget. But tonight, I want to talk specifically about the primary goal of getting out of debt and the pieces that come along with that. So again, some people felt they were embarrassed, they were ashamed, and why and how did debt get such a bad name? I want to address that first by stating that not all debt is bad. There is good debt and there is bad debt. Some of the good debt or necessary debt are mortgages. If you ever have owned a house, you've likely taken out a mortgage. In fact, about 66% of the country of homeowners, carry a mortgage. And that average mortgage balance as of yesterday is about $245,000. So most people can't afford to just pay that outright. Or if they have, they've been paying it off over time. Student loans, about the same number, 63% of college students come out of college with student loans. And the average loan debt is about $27,000. So think about that. If you were forced to pay off a student loan within the first year after you got out of school, you would be paying over $2,000 a month just to pay off your student loan. Now, I didn't make that much out of college. I couldn't afford that. I would have been living at home a lot longer, and I wouldn't have been able to get my life going. So these loans are set up for longer term with typically lower rates so that you can pay them off over time and still live your life and do the things you want to do. That's true for mortgages, for student loans, and then I have automobiles, good or bad. Depending on who you talk to, someone's going to say auto loans they're not good debt. Someone might say, yes, they are good debt. And it really, for every individual situation, it's going to be different. And I'll touch on that here again in a little bit. But for those of you who have ever owned a home, you've used good debt. If you had student loans, you've used good debt. I myself graduated college in 2003. I still have a small amount of college debt. I'm not ashamed to admit that because it helped me get through college. It got me to the university that I wanted to go to, and it helped me get through there. My wife and I have a mortgage. We chose to buy a house in Edgewood that forced us to use a mortgage. And I mean, that sounds kind of funny. I think we chose to do something that forced us to get a mortgage, that forced us into these payments. But our reasoning was sound. We knew what the payments were going to be. We knew we could afford the payments. And the house that we live in, the community that we live in, was worth it to us to take on that burden of the mortgage. And yeah, 30 years is a long time to pay it off, but it's 30 years. We have that time and we have that ability to work on that. So again, these are going to be longer term loans, and they're designed that way so that people can afford them. And let me think here. I guess I don't want to spend too much time talking about the good debt because that's not why you're here. You're obviously not. If you are here to you want to learn about good debt, you can refinance loans, whether it be automobiles or cars, or or homes. But that's for another topic. That's for a real estate professional, loan professional. We can discuss that with you if you have any questions. But tonight we're talking about bad debt or the excess debt. So this is the debt that primarily comes from credit cards, but it also stems from rental shops, furniture, rent to own, payday loans, advanced pay, situations. It's short-term debt that typically has a higher interest rate and shorter payoff times. These are designed by creditors to make a profit based on your need to purchase certain items. So again, payday loans, rent to own, cash advances. These aren't typically, yes, they're lending you money, but they're not considered lenders. One of the books that I read recently basically called them predatory companies that are looking to make a buck off the people who are in need of actual and real financial help. And so the government has taken a lot of steps to help combat that and to keep the regulations and rules down so they're not hurting people. But if you are involved with any of those payday loans, cash advance things, I strongly encourage you to avoid these types of loans because they are really more harmful than they are helpful. And again, I want to mention that because it's part of the everyday world, but really we're going to focus tonight on the credit cards. So one of the primary reasons that people tend to buy a lot and to spend a lot is because they're trying to keep up with the Joneses, as they say. Whether it be peer pressure, social pressure, an expected standard of living, it doesn't matter what you call it or what your reasoning, we all kind of feel a need to try to get approval from our family and friends. And the easiest way to impress our family and friends is to spend our money. And that can really lead to some unwise financial decisions. And I know all you want to have the beautiful, big, best toys and bells and whistles, but sometimes we need to reconsider those purchases while keeping the budget in mind. So tying in everything we talked about last week with managing your budget, knowing how much you have coming in, how much you have going out, and working within your spending. So if you are constantly finding that you're spending more than your budget, I would ask that you reconsider some of your purchases or look at your budget. Just kind of figure out what are the important things you need to buy so that you can actually not have to go into debt and we can work on getting out of debt. So, ask yourself, are these purchases necessary or are they excess? That's kind of the question we're talking about here. And really it's about finding balance between what you want and what you can afford. So you don't need to keep up with the Joneses. If you can afford it to, more power to you, but you don't need to. So don't let those social pressures force you into things that you may not necessarily need. So let's get into the meat of it here, right? You're in debt. Maybe you know someone who is in debt and you're here to try to help them. It can be overwhelming, as we're talking about. The weight of debt on your shoulders can be suffocating and there's no light at the end of the tunnel. But I'm hoping what I show you tonight can let you see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel and that there is hope to get out of debt. Oftentimes when we're talking about goals, whether it be emergency savings, vacation, new car, retirement, new home, whatever your financial goals are, debt can be a massive roadblock to getting to those goals. And so what I want you to do here and what I want you to keep in mind as you're working through all this is that you want to focus on one goal at a time. Otherwise, if you're focusing on everything, that can give you the appearance of failure because you're not reaching any of those goals. You're slowly working towards them, but you're not achieving them. Whether you're trying to plan for a vacation while also trying to pay off credit cards and save for retirement, all three of those are going to take longer to achieve and it can break your spirit. So I want you to focus on one thing at a time. That way you can have those small victories and those little bits of momentum and success as you work through this process. Okay, so keep that in mind, one goal at a time. So what we're going to work on stems mostly from Dave Ramsey and Financial Peace University. His process has been used by hundreds of thousands of people. I've used it myself. Josh, you said you used it at one point, I believe, and it's tried and true. It isn't necessarily for everybody. And I will say outright here, there are things in the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace that I don't necessarily agree with. But this piece that we're talking about tonight, the debt snowball, I think it works. And I think it's one of the best debt solutions out there. So that's why I'm presenting this to you tonight in hopefully a way that makes sense. So goal number one, strategy number one, if you are in debt, I want you to make sure that you have $1,000 saved in a bank account in a savings account available to you. If you don't have it yet, I want you to work towards it. And how do you do that? You get your budget. You figure out what you make, what you can save, and start working towards that budget. Now you might think, well, gosh, no, I got to pay off my credit card. Trust me, you want to have this $1,000 fund first. And there's two reasons why. One, saving that $1,000 is a victory. It gets you to that first goal. Okay, it's one focus, one goal. It's a victory. You win so that you can now focus on getting out of debt. So again, if you have this saved already, you're in really great shape. And again, if you need help finding out what's in your budget so that you can save this, please reach out and let me know. I'm happy to help you work through it. A key point when you're putting your budget together, I want you to look at what your minimum payments are for your credit cards. And I want you to factor those minimum payments into that budget. And I'll get back to that here in just a minute of why that's important, because you have to pay that. I mean, really you do. Why? I'm not even gonna wait. You have to pay your minimums. Otherwise you're gonna have late fees. You're gonna have no payment, charges. So you want to avoid those. Otherwise you're just gonna continue to get into debt. So strategy number one, why $1,000? Because it's attainable. It's not a full 3 to 6 months worth of, of income. If something happened, it's a small enough goal that you can get there. And it's $1,000. Something about that 3 zeros is magical. People feel really good when they hit those nice big round numbers. So again, we're working on saving that. If you need help putting that budget together, please let me know. Reach out to Josh. We can connect somehow so I can help you out. Getting this buffer is what we're calling it, a buffer or an insurance, is going to help protect your progress here as we work into the debt snowball. So again, if you can get to this first $1,000, do that first. So strategy number two, paying off the debt. Now, the goal here is to pay off your debt and to get rid of all your credit cards. And you're going to limit the spending you do to what is contained within your budget. If you cannot limit your budget, you should rethink using your credit card or rethink the purchases you're making to fit within your budget. Again, if you can't pay it off, don't buy it. The goal is to get out of debt. If you keep getting yourself over budget, you're going to get further and further into debt. So as you're working through this debt process, this debt snowball, things are going to come up. But that's why we have that buffer, okay? And there are reasons that we have that. Josh, I'm going to bring you back in here for a minute. At the beginning of last week, you talked about when you and your wife were building a budget, you had some issues with a vet. Can you talk a little bit, for a minute or two here about how those debt issues or those vet issues, excuse me, affected your budget? What did that do to your budget, and how did that affect everything?
Yeah, the vet, we had the money saved, so that was really, really helpful. And we really try to make sure that we have as much money saved as we can. And so my wife actually does the budget, and she's the one who puts aside money each time. But yeah, it's unexpected things really shouldn't be unexpected because they are going to happen. So things like a vet, a car accident, other things, it's just going to happen. So we put money aside each month, and so we were able to pay it because of that.
Right. So if you hypothetically, if you hadn't had that, we'll call it just that minimum $1,000, how would that have affected your budget and your planning?
Yeah, I would have thrown everything off. We probably would have freaked out. And I think oftentimes when, I recognize when people freak out, they don't always make the wisest choices.
Nailed it.
Having that buffer just kind of helps to calm you to make, at least for me, to make sure that I can make wiser decisions.
Yeah, perfect. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, having that buffer helps you make smarter decisions. I mean, that's perfect. Thank you. So what I want to show you here, the basic principle of the debt snowball. What I want you to do is look at all of your credit card bills, and I want you to write them down. And this is your homework. You don't have to do this right now, but as you're, again, working with your budget, working with your finances, take your credit card bills. And now this is the meat of it here. Okay. So now that's when I'm asking you to really pay attention. I want you to write your bills down and list them in order from lowest to highest. Your interest rate here on this column does not matter. We're listing them. Credit card number 1 for this family's example has 800. Credit card 2 is 850, 1500, and 2250. This is the only thing that's allowing you to order your balances. So in doing this, I'm going to walk you through this whole process. And again, on an individual basis, if you have questions about your own finances, please reach out to me, reach out to Josh. We'll help you figure out how to work through your own figures here. But I'm going to explain the general concept so you can hopefully put it together yourself. So this family has $300 worth of credit card bill minimums every month. They've included that in their budget. And after they put everything else into their budget, they realize they have an extra $150 per month that they can put towards paying off their credit card bills and getting out of debt. So this family could hypothetically split that $150 between the 4 credit cards and slowly pay off each one. But the problem with having this many credit cards is, and by splitting up that number, you're not really doing much. You're taking little bites out of everything. So the goal here, again, is to focus on one problem at a time and really maximize your momentum. So think of credit cards like a juggling act. This family is currently trying to balance 4 credit card bills at one time. The balances are getting heavier. They're starting to weigh them down. It's affecting their family life. And if they try to take those tiny bits and bites off of each credit card every month, it would take them so long to get each of these down to where the point where the debt wasn't hurting them. And all of that slow drain would just take that energy away, and they wouldn't have those small victories. So again, we're focusing on one item at a time so that you can earn that small victory, get rid of one card first, and then use that positive momentum to keep going. All right. So what we're going to do is take a bigger chunk out of the smallest debt possible first and watch what happens. So we're going to take this $150 per month extra. After the minimums are paid, that $150 is going towards credit card number 1. As you roll into month 2, you can see everything goes down a little bit, except for credit card number 1 goes down by $200. Month 3, the same thing. Month 4, you get into month 5, and credit card number 1 is completely paid off. That's the beauty of this system. Now they only have 3. And think about how much less stress is now we only have 3 cards to pay. So the cool part that really makes this work, in months 1 through 4, the family was paying $150 extra on top of the $50 minimum. Now you add that up and put that now $200 towards credit card number 2, which is the next lowest balance due. So you continue to pay your minimums and then add to that credit card number 2. So now you're paying $275 towards credit card number 2. 1 month later, 2 months later, you now have 2 credit cards paid off. And all of a sudden, the extra you have that you can now put towards credit card number 3 is $275. So what started as $150 has now almost doubled. You're at $275. So you're going to go through it again, and you're going to add that previous minimums to the extra and continue to pay off the next lowest balance. And you can see month 8, month 9, month 10, we have 3 credit cards paid off for this family's example. Now, this process may seem too easy. It may seem too basic, too simple, but it's not. It's really simply take what you can afford, put it towards that lowest balance, and get rid of the 1 card. So what you can see is by taking that $150 extra and then paying things off and paying things off and paying things off, you have that so much extra per month to the point where in this family's example, after 1 year, they have 0 credit card debt. And now they have $450 extra that they can put towards those other goals. And that's really the debt snowball in a nutshell. And, so if this is still not clear, if you still have questions, again, please reach out in the chat, in the Q&A, or reach out to me after this. And I want to walk you through that. So Josh, you asked me earlier a question about what if something comes up, right? Oh, I might have lost your audio. So Josh asked me earlier, what if something comes up in the middle of this process? And, what if I need to use my credit card? Like Andy, something happened. I know I'm trying to pay off the debt, but, you didn't ask me in that panicked of a manner. But what if something happens and I need to go use my credit card? Well, it was a good question. And if you remember, your first goal here is to save that first $1,000. And the reason being is that we have that buffer. If something comes up, if your dog needs to go get a shot at the vet and it's $200, you don't want to put it on your credit card, well, you've got that $1,000 buffer to help with that. So you're going to want to try and refill that and work with your budget to refill that $1,000, but it's there. But Josh's question was, what if something costs over $1,000? So let's take a look at that. Let's go back to say month 6 here in this family's example. Credit card number 1 is paid off. And when you get a card paid off, I encourage you to grab some scissors. I just happen to have some and snip those things. Cut the credit cards up because the goal is to get out of debt. So cut your credit cards up. But back to that original question, what if you need to spend money and you can't afford to pay outright cash? What do you do? So in this family's example, I would advise them to say, okay, credit card number 1 is gone. I would pay whatever you need to pay for here. I would take credit card number 3. And the reason being is it has the lowest interest rate. That's really, if you're trying to get out of debt and you're trying to hold on for the longest period of time, that would be the best card to do. Josh, you got your hand raised.
Yeah, what about, so we actually have a kind of an Air Miles credit card. So would you recommend getting rid of those, or would you recommend keeping those? And kind of what we do is we use it and we pay it off, but we don't always fully pay it off. So that's part of the problem.
So yeah, I mean, that's a terrific question. And I use a credit card for my everyday purchases for that exact reason as well. Because, oftentimes those reward cards will pay 1%, 1.5% back in cash back or travel rewards or a lot of different perks. So they're useful and you can use them, absolutely use them. But the goal again is to try to make sure your spending stays within that budget so that you're not monthly racking up over, piling that debt up. If you can use that credit card to then pay it off every month or get close to it so that you're paying it off at least within 2 months, I'm all for that. And I do that myself. So, I mean, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, thank you, Josh. That's a great one. So again, if you need to use that credit card, you want to go with the lower interest rate because it'll help you keep those additional payments down. And then, so hypothetically, let's say this family adds another $1,000 to credit card number 3. They would then want to switch those 3 and 4. That way, the number of credit card 4 would have the lower balance, and then just continue to pay off those cards as they go. So does that kind of work? Does that work there for you, Josh? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so the strategy number 3. This can seem really contradictory to everything we're talking about. So far, we've basically said pay off your credit cards, get away from credit cards unless you can pay them off every month. Cut up your credit cards. I mean, that's one of Dave Ramsey's principles is cut up every single credit card you have. It's one of the things that I kind of disagree with. And yeah, Josh, to your question, they can be useful. They can be positive tools if you use them responsibly and have discipline. So one of the other strategies, though, that can be helpful and can take the debt snowball basically out of the equation would be to consolidate your credit cards. And I caution you before doing this, before signing up for anything, to again, talk to your bank, your financial institution, ask a lot of questions and make sure you have a 0% card for at least 12 months and 0 fee on balance transfers. So what family could do there with their 4 cards, they could have transferred the balances of all 4 of those over to a 0% credit card for 12 months. And on their plan, they would have had that entire balance paid off at a year. So it would have worked for them. if you've got a balance that looks, or a couple balances that make it look like you're going to be 2 or 3 or 4 years of paying out debt, let me know. It's an easy way to put it. Let me know, and I can help guide you through what would be a good decision, if consolidating would be a smart decision for you or not. Oftentimes it can be, but again, it's going to take discipline. It's going to take responsibility and owning those debts and keeping pace with your budget. And primarily they're going to use consolidating for the shorter term, usually within 12 months. So you're debt free. Congratulations. You worked through this process. It maybe took you 6 months. It maybe took you 2 years, but if you follow the process and you stick to it, it'll work. The goal, now that you're debt free, is to stay out of debt. You want to keep all of your credit card purchases to within your budget, and you want to just minimize those extra expenses if you don't have to. Now, obviously, there are things within this that I didn't really touch on. What if you don't have a job? What if you can't pay off your credit card because you don't have income? Those are situations that are more individual and more unique. And again, if that's your situation or someone you know, please let me know. And I would be honored to be able to help you out and help you figure those situations out and working through that. There are a lot of other solutions out there. These are just what I wanted to touch on tonight because they've got the most impact and they're most efficient in paying off debt. So again, you're out of debt. Stay out of debt. You have to be vigilant. You have to be disciplined, and you have to take responsibility for yourself and for your ownerships. If you need to, grab those scissors, cut them up. Oftentimes credit cards are now digital. They're on your phone. They're on your Apple Watch, whatever it is. Delete them. If you don't need those cards, delete them because they're only going to potentially cause you problems. Now, again, Josh, you asked about the perks. If you can, you want to get cards with lower interest rates if you're not going to be paying them off every month, but sign up for cards that have good perks. There's absolutely no reason to not take advantage of the perks and the cash back that they give you. So if you need a credit card and you're responsible and you're disciplined, yeah, find a card that works for you. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So then once you get out of debt, now you have the time to focus on those other goals, whether that be, building up that emergency savings, get past that $1,000, bring it to the 3 to the 5 to the 6 month income where if something happened and you didn't have income for that period of time, you're safe. Work on then, planning for a vacation, new home, new car, maybe a wedding for your kids, college planning, whatever your goals are. Again, now that you have that debt, focus on those goals. And then, just to kind of summarize here, we're at the closing, get that $1,000. It's going to be a buffer. It's going to be insurance as you work through the debt snowball. The debt snowball itself, strategy number 2, put everything you can towards the lowest balance, Then take that minimum, put it towards the next one and the next one and the next one. Continue to pay those minimums as you go so you don't have any late fees, but it'll work and the process does work. If you need to consolidate, do your research, find those cards with zero balances, zero transfer fees, and those things can really be beneficial as well. The overall goal here, focus on one thing at a time, get those victories, use that momentum, keep that snowball rolling downhill, and then stay out of debt and stick to your budget. So again, questions. I'll leave my info up here for just a minute. Josh, what do you see? Any questions on the Q&A board?
Actually, I have a question. If we have paid off our credit card debt, what is kind of our next focus? So would it be to pay off our car? Would it be to save more money? I know it's a little bit individual, but is there any kind of next step you would recommend?
If on a generic scale, the very first thing I recommend to all my clients or prospective clients or my friends, my family, is the emergency savings is typically the first thing that I think you should be saving for. And again, there's unexpected things that are going to come up in everyone's lives. Sometimes they're good things, sometimes they're bad things, but you want to be prepared and you want to have that comfort and that buffer. So that's my kind of straightforward answer is that emergency savings. And again, if it's 3 months, if it's 6 months, whatever you or your family are comfortable with, that would be my first suggestion. Beyond that, you're out of debt, you've got your emergency savings. then I'm personally going to recommend you start planning long-term, put some short-term goals in there, some long-term goals in there, and start building towards those long-term things, and start using your money in a positive manner that way. Get it to work for you. Yeah.
Any questions from anybody? I don't see any questions so far. We'd love to hear your questions.
Take my name down there.
If I actually had another question while we're here too, so kind of wait to hear. How much money, and this is kind of tying in a little bit to next week, so maybe we want to wait until next week, but next week we're going to be talking about foundations of investing, and kind of looking, this week we're kind of looking at paying off debt and getting rid of debt. Next week we're looking at how do we move forward now that we've paid off our debt and invest. So kind of as a tie into next week, at what point should how much savings should we have in the bank to then start looking at, okay, we have extra money, we want to invest?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And again, I think a lot of that is going to be tied to your comfort level, and not necessarily yours, but you, the viewer, your comfort level on an individual or on a couple's, a family basis. And, really I know somebody's giving me a hard time here. There's really no set number. And, if you're a young person that has a little bit more freedom, you don't have necessarily a family, you don't have kids, you don't have a mortgage, you might be able to put more towards that retirement, or towards those long-term goals. And I think that when you're able to start young at an early age, that benefits you so much longer in the long run. If you're someone who's, their 40s or 50s, a little bit older, you've got kids, you've got a mortgage, you've got other things to worry about. Your income, depending on where that is as well. You want to look at it. I'm going to look at individual basis and before I make those suggestions. But again, I'd come back to that emergency savings, what's comfortable for you and your family. And then we're going to look at the budget. What do you have coming in every month that you're able to put away and put aside? And that, again, long-winded, but every situation is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions from anybody here on getting rid of debt on debt control?
Doesn't look like it.
No questions.
All right. I'll take that as a compliment.
Okay. I really think, the debt snowball, it's a great system. It's easy to remember, which also makes it great. Sometimes the smartest is the simplest. And so, yeah. We'd love to hear from you, from those people who, if there's anything, you can also reach out to Andy or reach out to myself, Joshua S. at mountviewcc.org. I'll put it in the chat. And if you have any questions, or if you have any other ideas on our series that you're looking for in the future, that'd be great too. But I think with that, if there's no other questions, Andy, you have anything else you want to go over?
No, I just, as far as content, I went through everything I wanted to talk about. But again, thank you to everybody for coming on. It's really, it's humbling to see you here, humbling to see that you care. And I'm really excited to see more people next week. And after my series here is done, I'm excited to see what else the Family Life Together series brings. I know you've got some good stuff lined up, Josh. And so I'm really excited and glad to be part of this and help build this. So again, please tell your family, tell your friends. We have 2 more weeks. Next week will be the foundations of investing. The week after that, we'll be talking a little bit about estate planning as well. So lots to cover still, and I'm excited for you all to come back and bring your friends and family.
All right. Thanks so much, Andy. Really appreciate all your hard work and care in letting us know about this. And thanks to everybody for coming. And we look forward to seeing you all next week.
All righty. Thank you again, Josh. Thanks, everybody.